Tiger Woods didn't just make an announcement, he walked away. And when someone who has spent 3 decades refusing to step back from anything suddenly chooses to step away from everything, you don't look at the headline, you look at what forced it. Because this wasn't about missing another tournament. It wasn't about rehab updates or vague timelines. This was different. This was final in a way that golf fans aren't used to hearing when it comes to Tiger. For months, the silence around him had already started to feel heavier than usual. Longer, less hopeful. And then, in the middle of a normal tournament week at the RBC Heritage, without warning, that silence broke. Not with a comeback plan, not with a return date, but with something much harder to process. And the moment that message came out, the entire golf world stopped. Because for the first time, it felt like this wasn't about when Tiger comes back. It was about whether he ever will. For months, the question surrounding Tiger Woods hasn't been about location. Everyone knows where he is. He's in Jupiter, Florida, inside one of the most controlled environments in professional sports. A private estate built around recovery, precision, and isolation. A place where every detail is designed to support the one thing that has defined the final stage of his career: survival, not dominance. Not chasing records, just getting his body to a place where it can function at the level required to compete again. But knowing where he is physically has never answered the real question. Because the real question has always been where he stands mentally, physically, and realistically within the game itself. And throughout the entire 2026 season, that answer has remained unclear. The game has continued moving without him. Rory McIlroy has been building momentum, stacking wins, and reminding everyone why he's still one of the defining players of this era. Scottie Scheffler continues to operate at a level of consistency that keeps him firmly at the top of the sport. A new generation of players, younger, sharper, more aggressive, has fully stepped into the spotlight. And through all of it, Tiger has been absent, not just from leaderboards, but from the conversation in a way that feels different from previous injuries. Because in the past, absence from Tiger always came with expectation, the assumption that he would return, that somehow he would find a way back. This time, that assumption hasn't felt as certain. The last real glimpse anyone had of him in competition came at the 2025 Open Championship at Royal Portrush. And even that didn't look like the Tiger people were used to seeing. It looked like a player fighting his own body more than the course itself. Completing rounds, but not competing in the way that once defined him. Since then, updates have been minimal and carefully controlled. Words like progress and getting stronger have been used, but without any real clarity behind them. And when Tiger speaks like that, people listen closely, because his words usually reveal more than they seem to. But this time, even those small updates felt distant. Because the reality of his condition in 2026 isn't centered around a single injury. It's the accumulation of everything that came before. The car accident that nearly ended his career. The surgeries that followed. The years of wear on his body that no athlete escapes, especially one who played the game the way he did. His right leg, held together by surgical hardware and determination. His back, a timeline of procedures and recovery cycles. It's not one problem. It's a system that has been pushed to its limit, and at some point, even the most resilient systems stop responding the way they used to. That's why the silence this time felt different. Because it wasn't just absence, it was uncertainty. Then came the RBC Heritage. The tournament itself was unfolding the way it usually does. Tight competition, strong leaderboard, the familiar setting of Harbour Town doing what it has always done. But in the middle of all of that, something shifted. Not on the course, but outside of it. A statement appeared. Quiet. Simple. Easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. But the moment people realized what it was, everything else faded into the background. Because it was Tiger Woods speaking. And the timing made it even more powerful. This wasn't weeks after an incident. It wasn't part of a scheduled update. It came during a moment when no one expected it. And what it revealed wasn't a return. It was a departure. Tiger Woods had left the country. Not for competition, for treatment. According to the statement, he had been approved by a Florida judge to travel overseas for a comprehensive inpatient program. Not outpatient care. Not short-term recovery. A full, structured, controlled environment designed for something far more serious than physical rehab alone. Reports placed him in Switzerland, inside a private residential facility known for handling complex cases requiring both medical and psychological treatment. The program was expected to last 90 days, and the reasoning behind it was clear. His situation required a level of care that could not be effectively managed within the United States, largely due to the constant pressure of exposure. Privacy. That's the word that stood out, because for most of his life, Tiger has never had it. Every injury, every comeback, every mistake, every victory has existed under a microscope. And now, at a point where his body and mind are both under pressure, he made a decision that prioritized something he has rarely chosen before. Distance. Separation. Space to recover without the weight of expectation constantly surrounding him. But the statement didn't stop there, because alongside that decision came another one that carried just as much weight, if not more. Tiger Woods turned down the Ryder Cup captaincy. For years, that role was seen as inevitable. Not a possibility, but a certainty. The natural progression of a career that had already achieved everything else. Leading the United States team, representing the country, stepping into a position that aligned perfectly with his legacy. The 2027 Ryder Cup in Ireland was supposed to be that moment. The stage, the timing, everything lined up. And then, just like that, it was gone. Not postponed, not reconsidered. Declined. And that's when the full weight of this situation hit. Because stepping away from tournaments is one thing. Stepping away from legacy is something else entirely. The reaction inside the golf world was immediate, but mixed. Some saw it as the right decision. A necessary step for someone who has pushed his body and mind beyond what most athletes ever experience. Others saw it as the closing of a chapter they weren't ready to let go of. The idea of Tiger in that captain's role wasn't just about leadership. It was about continuity, about keeping his presence inside the game, even if his playing days were coming to an end. But that option is gone now, and with it, a version of the future that many people had already accepted as fact. At the same time, something else started to emerge. Respect. Not the kind built on victories, but the kind built on decisions that are harder to make. Because for a player whose entire identity has been built around pushing forward, refusing to stop, finding a way through every obstacle, choosing to step away is the opposite of everything he has represented. And that's what makes it significant. Because this wasn't forced, it was chosen. The RBC Heritage continued. The leaderboard shifted. Players competed. Another tournament moved forward the way tournaments always do. But none of that felt central anymore. Because the conversation had moved somewhere else entirely. It moved to Tiger. To what this means. To whether this is temporary or permanent. To whether the greatest career the sport has ever seen has quietly reached its final phase without anyone realizing it in real time. And the truth is, no one knows. Not the fans. Not the analysts. Probably not even Tiger himself. Because recovery at this stage isn't about timelines. It's about outcomes that can't be predicted. What happens next isn't defined by tournaments, it's defined by health. By whether his body responds, by whether his body responds, by whether his mind stabilizes, by whether the version of Tiger that once defined golf can exist again in any form. And maybe that's the hardest part for people to accept, that for the first time, the story isn't about winning. It's about something much simpler, staying here. Continuing forward, because in the end, this wasn't just an announcement, it was a shift. Tiger Woods didn't tell the golf world he was coming back. He told it he needed to step away. And sometimes that's the most important decision an athlete can make. So now the question isn't when we see Tiger again. It's whether we will. And for the first time in a long time, that answer doesn't feel certain.